Hi there, welcome to our podcast. This is going to be for the Cities of the World final. I'm Jack Gallen. I'm the one taking the class. This is Alexander Diller, my roommate. He's going to be doing the interviewing, maybe adding a little bit to the discussion, but for the most part, I will be the one answering the questions, as I'm the one being graded.
All right, let's get started. First question: how do global forces shape differences and inequalities across communities?
That's a lot to unpack in that one question. So we got global forces, and what was the second part of that?
How do they shape differences and inequalities across communities?
I think I'm just going to pull from an example. I've done some research on it, but in my hometown of Cincinnati, we have a park called Over the Rhine. There's a really big issue with gentrification right there. So that's basically when you got these rich people coming in and they're buying up the property, people who can't make their house payments, they're fixing it up, and then they're selling them to a different class of people. So the people who live there their whole life no longer can live in those houses that have been newly renovated. So that's causing a bunch of diversity issues inside of Cincinnati. There's been more violence. I wouldn't say violence in the area, but it's caused unrest in the city. There's a bunch of people displaced from their homes where they historically came from. Originally, Over the Rhine was a German area, but over the time it became a place for mostly African Americans. They were poor generally, but once they can't make the house payments, these big companies say, we'll take all the houses, we're gonna fix them up, make them all nice. They're saying this is gonna make the city cleaner and nicer, but it really is just moving the heart of the people that actually live in Cincinnati out of the city, and it is making a big displacement. And what was the other part of that question?
And it was just talking about inequalities and the differences between global forces.
So I think, while that's just looking at a local part, we can expand that globally to different places all around the world. I know in class, looked at some places in South America where they had similar issues, but the government actually intervened, took action, and they were able to fix it up for the better. So while where we saw locally gentrification in Over the Rhine in Cincinnati, a place in South America, it was once the most dangerous town. I can't think of the top of my head what it was called, but it was the most dangerous town in the world. Lots of drugs ran through the place, but government intervened. They were able to fix it up, and now it's like a big arts district, which is really cool because now there's tons of new life. It's a lot safer, a lot more people are going to go, brings tourism. So, I think there's a certain dynamic right now that we're trying to find a good balance of, but there's just a lot of different effects.
Yeah, I think I saw a documentary on that place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know, I forget the name, but
yeah, it's up on a hillside.
Yeah, what you're describing sounds familiar to me. I do have a question for you. So, you were talking about people getting displaced from their houses,
yeah,
and these big parties were coming in and fixing them up. Were they also destroying their houses to make these marketplaces, to build a Kroger or something?
So yes and no. A lot of it is a historic district, so they legally can't touch the outside of houses. But there's a lot of buildings that they've demolished and then have rebuilt. A lot of historic, old buildings have been there since 200 years.
Yeah.
And globally, that's not a long time. But in the United States, we're a pretty young country. That's a long time for us. And so it's not like London, where they got their pubs that have been there since the 1500s. Yeah. Anyways, the fact that they're coming in and they are destroying some of these and remaking them, what they say, nicer, newer. Well, yes, visually appealing. I've been there before and after. It does look nicer, cleaner, and safer. It's not always that. You got to look a little deeper. And the displacement of housing, and then you go a little outside the city and you see where all these people are going. It gets pretty rough. And it's moving all these people outside is causing lots of violence where, just from my own knowledge of living in the city, you have these gangs that were in this one territory, and now they're being moved to another that are intersecting.
Yeah.
And so now there's that overlapping boundary, and it's causing lots of gang violence in different areas of the city that previously hadn't had that issue. So it goes deeper than just, oh, here's a pretty building. You got to look deeper into the story. I think that's where doing your due diligence, doing your research, looking past just the surface value is important. And I think, just being in the cities of the world class has really helped me take that deeper dive into things I wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah, do you think they've been like, did they originally go in there to try to solve a problem? Or were they just like...
Well, that's interesting you say that. So as I was doing a deep dive, it turns out there were false police reports. So the companies are coming in, made up their own studies, saying basically that this is an unsafe part of town. We've got to do something. Turns out like 60 or 70% of those were not true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's crazy to think about. But you can't always, while I'm saying this, you can't always trust everything you read. And so they were presenting us to say, like, hey, look at this, there's an issue. Let us come in and help it. There wasn't an issue there to begin with.
You think the government just doesn't care? Like, they see these...
Okay, so this ties into neoliberalism.
Okay.
So everything's being kind of privatized.
Gotcha.
And so with the privatization of everything, everything's a money business now.
Okay.
And sometimes the common good of the people who have lived there before, the money is put before them. And that's also, kind of become an issue.
Hey, could you describe, what was the word?
Neoliberalism.
Yeah, can you describe that for me?
So it's a super extreme form of capitalism at its base.
Okay.
Basically, it's an ideal that came along, and it's just privatizing different parts of the government. So, like, I guess help out local businesses or whatever. But it's also making it to where everything is a money game, and the best, what's in the best people's interest, isn't there. Like, we're a democracy, we're supposed to vote on things, but when it's all being privatized, it makes it a little bit harder. There's different, ideals and motivations for a company that's making money versus the government.
Okay, gotcha. All right, moving on to the next question. What are the complexities of participating in a diverse world?
I think that's interesting because, I'm going to tie it back to myself again, living in northern Kentucky. You wouldn't expect it being in Kentucky, but it's a very, very diverse place. There's a lot of Amazon factories and other factory work, so that's brought in a lot of people from overseas. We see a lot of Hispanic population, Asian population, African American, white, everything. I would say my school makeup was probably like 25, 25, 25, 25. It was a pretty diverse place.
Yeah.
And so firsthand, I've been able to see how diversity can be a good thing, but also how it can lead to some issues. I think a good thing, one of my good friends back home is Martin. He was Hispanic. His parents moved here recently. And we saw a lot of worldviews differently, but we were able to collaborate and come up with a lot of creative ideas and think outside the box from things I wouldn't have even thought about. One of the things specifically was there was this, it sounds silly, but there was this food he really liked, and there was these little chocolate cakes. And it was something with the wrapper. It was some way that the Americans, we just haven't figured it out yet, but it kept the thing from getting smushed. And I thought it was genius. And it was just little things like that, where I think mixing cultures can be a good idea, and it can almost spark some creativity.
Okay.
Issues, though, sometimes, like at our home high school, Ryle High School, there were lots of fights where people, racism was an issue, where people would be like, I don't like that you're here.
Yeah.
You need to go back to where you came from.
Yeah.
But it's like, these people are helping our economy. Why are we being separated? I think we need to just come together more and be like, I understand that you're different than me, but we can still work together. You're here now. We can all, live in unison. And I know it's kind of silly, kumbaya, But I think there's a balance. I think we all just need to come together better and learn each other's differences. And we don't have to conform to each other's differences, but just all understand and respect each other.
Yeah, I think there's a good, like, I don't know, it's good to have diversity because you're able to bring up these issues and you're able to, like, work through them and, like, you can discuss your differences without getting into a fight.
That's what I'm saying.
And I think that helps your overall view of the world.
100%. I think it's important to hear other people's differences, take into account without shutting them down immediately. Just hear what they have to say. I think everyone needs to do a better job of listening.
Yeah, of course. Well, that brings us to our next question. What are some ethical dilemmas / conflicts related to cross-culture decision making?
So, I'm a business major, and the theme of this podcast has been tying in what I've learned in cities of the world and tying it back to my real life. So I think that's the most important way to learn. That's just the best way I learn. Being a business major, we've learned a little bit about other cultures and how the way Americans do business is very different than other parts of the world. In Europe, they're a lot more laid back. They don't work as many hours, but they all seem a little happier. I mean, they got free health care. They have, less worries. Their taxes may be a little higher, but there's pros and cons. But like the Japanese, they're more straightforward. They care more about the hierarchy of the business. They have a lot of different customs than us. Different other cultures in Asia and South Africa, they pray at certain times of the day. India, they have these certain prayer times. They'll stop everything. They'll pray at their certain time, and they'll go back to work. And I think these are all culture issues, not issues. No, not issues. These are all cultural aspects that being in business you need to understand so that you can, accept what they're doing. Like in America, we celebrate Christmas on December 25th.
Yeah.
Other countries would be like, okay, December 25th, that's, a national holiday, that's their day off. They celebrate Christianity on that day. We're not going to deal business. I think we need to be more aware as a society and a culture of other people's cultures, customs, and norms so that we can, maybe, not exactly base our stuff around it, but be more understanding if they're not responding to an email at 8:30 and be like, oh, it's a business day. Maybe it isn't for their culture, and they have a certain reason why they're not doing it.
Do you think that slows down production though?
I mean, if you're looking at it from a strictly business side, it may slow down it a little bit, but I think people having a better well-being will be better employees, giving you better production. I think letting them have that little extra time is actually important. It's like, we don't go off 2 hours of sleep. That's not good. You're not a well-functioning person. You'll be cranky, tired, crying, everything. No. You got to sleep your 8 to 10 hours, get the full rest, get the full recovery. You're more productive. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with letting people celebrate their culture, do their customs, and then when it comes back to it, then you can get back to work and hit a ground running.
Yeah, I think in some cities they're actually doing 4-day-a-week.
Yeah. There's some countries that are kind of fiddling with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we're a hustle culture here in America, but I don't know. I guess we'll see how it works out.
What is a major element of non-U.S. culture society and its relationship to contemporary issues?
I think tying it back to what I was previously talking about like Japanese culture, I think it's important to understand the way they do. So, like I mentioned previously, they really rely on a hierarchy system, and when they're in the business world, they really respect it. And I think that kind of comes from Confucianism, which is really an old time belief, but it's still kind of there in their culture. They respect authority. They look up to elders. Elders get a ton of respect. And I think that looking at the knowledge is also super important. But while they focus heavily on respecting the past, they're also the cutting edge of technology, right? You think of Japan, you think of all the technology, all the new things. You can even think of mainstream media. You got anime, you got Nintendo.
Yes.
I mean, there's tons of mainstream media you can think about that comes out of Japan. But so they have this balance, which I think is really cool. That they have a balance where they can respect, honor the past, have those people held high, but they also implement technology. You got Samsung, you got all this, they got bullet trains. I mean, it's a crazy place. But I think it's really cool to look at these non-U.S. Cultures and how they live, how they work, how they all live together, and what they can do not in a way of using them, but the things that they can do to help the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And while Japan's like a big thing to call out because they have massive GOP, I mean, it's just Japan, and it's just a big place with a lot of people. But I think it's really cool, and when doing some research outside of the United States, Japan is a really cool place, and I would love to visit one day.
They always say live in the present. I know you said they focus a lot on the past and a lot on the future, but do you think they dial in on the present?
I would say so. I mean, I've never been there personally, but looking at videos and stuff, everyone seems like they move in unison. They have massive crosswalks, massive roads, tons of cars, tons of public transit, and everyone just quietly moves throughout their day. It's a pretty quiet place. Everyone seems to respect each other.
Okay.
I think they do live in the moment. I think they have a lot of like almost meditation practices where it's almost zen, right?
Yeah.
Like they're focused. While yes, they want to innovate. Yes, they're respecting the past. I think how you get to that spot is being mindful in the moment and in the current place you're at.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way they've gotten their culture the way it is. I think it is being mindful of the present.
Yeah, I like that. All right. What are the links between local features and global trends? How do they shape each other?
Well, I once again will tie this back to a local place to me, Kentucky, Covington. So, looking at it locally, there's a big housing crisis. I know there's a housing crisis here in Lexington, but I worked at an internship in northern Kentucky, the Covington area, Newport. I saw firsthand how bad the housing crisis is. It was a nonprofit organization called Brighton Center. Basically, I ran social media to spread awareness of this big issue of housing. I also would cold call different places, be looking for where places are that could be open, that we could get some government help in, to take these slips. I can't remember the specific bill, but there's a certain slip if you fall under a certain income that you can give this ticket to pay a lower rent. The issue is a lot of the apartment places, complexes don't take them because they associate it with crime rate, bad people, and they don't want that as their tenants. But the issue is, I think it's like $25,000, which 30 to 40% of the people living in that area could have used this ticket to get lower rent. So looking at this housing crisis locally, I think it's also scaled up to the United States as a whole. I think the trend shows that if all these little local cities are having housing issues, as a whole, that means the rest of the United States probably is having a housing issue. And I think it goes to the economy. I think it goes to different governments not doing enough. Probably COVID has a massive impact on it. But when we're looking at these different scales, I think you also look at the big picture. Like I said, COVID, that affected the entire nation. That affected norms. And all these local areas, all these local cities followed those mandates given by the big grand scheme of the government. Pardon the light. But I think these scale both ways. It's not just a one-way system. Some of the local things will take to the big thing. Some of the big things like COVID will scale down to the small things like local mask mandates, social distancing, and all that. I think looking at other social norms like choice versus not having choice, Are women allowed to have abortions? Yes or no? I'm not going to state my opinion on it, but that's a small thing that local people start protesting in small organizations, and it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, it's on the Supreme Court at a grand scale.
Yeah.
And so I think there's multiple ways that different, what was the word in the question?
Trends.
There's different trends that can go to local areas or national big picture things.
Yeah, I feel like these modern protests, the main symbol is that one piece flag. Like it started in one protest.
Exactly.
It's
It
become
starts
global.
small, starts at one thing,
Yeah.
and then becomes national. And like I said, it becomes global. It's a big
Yeah.
thing. Things have to start small to get big. And I think you can look at your small city scale to almost predict what in 6 months to a year nationally is
Yeah.
going to be the case. While now it's not always the case, sometimes it is that way.
And I think if we look back at history, we can also predict what's
History
going to happen.
repeats itself.
Exactly.
Always repeats itself.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Can you tell me a little bit about societal, cultural, and institutional change over time?
I mean, that's pretty apparent. Societal, culture, what was the third one?
Institutional.
Institutional change.
Mm-hmm.
I think technology, boom. Biggest change in everything. Started with the Industrial Revolution. That was a massive change.
Yeah.
People started getting factories, people started to settle more, moving to big cities. I mean, that's what this whole class is based on, cities of the world. It started with the Industrial Revolution. Well, the big cities at least. You know, you have these big industrial hubs like Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all these factory towns. People come in, move from all these farms. Not many people are farming anymore. They're working for the factories. And then it keeps going. We start moving out who is working. What's the word I'm looking for? We have other countries do it for cheaper. And so these factories that were in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all these factory towns, they no longer have the factories there. And so now you just have all these people that don't have jobs. And so while there's some other businesses that have come in, a lot of these towns are dying off. I think Cincinnati is almost in a rebirth now, or rebounding, but in northern Kentucky with different factories like Amazon. But there's a lot of places like Buffalo, New York. I firsthand went to Buffalo, New York. It was a dump. It's sad to say, but it was just a bunch of abandoned factories, and you could tell that the people there just didn't have the best jobs or the best life, and that's kind of a dying city. So I think that kind of shows like the evolution. So that's one standpoint. The other standpoint on technology, how it's evolved, is you can see how technology starts in these cities and it slowly moves out into rural areas. My grandparents, when they grew up, lived in rural central Kentucky. They didn't have running water or electricity.
Yeah.
Now they have smartphones and Wi-Fi. But they didn't get that until about 5 to 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that kind of shows how technology spreads and evolves, and while it spreads in cities really fast when there's a big population, and it's a little slower to get outside, I think eventually it will all keep spreading out. What's the rest of that question?
There's just
Or excuse me, repeat it. Make sure.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about societal, cultural, and institutional change over time?
I think I think right now we've become too reliant on technology.
Especially with the AI.
100% AI is a big issue.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also big.
it does help us a lot. I think society in the last, honestly, just my lifetime, the last 20 years, has changed so much.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't have a phone or a tablet. I mean, there may have been some of my classmates that did, but I didn't even get a phone until middle school. And I think now kids, they're coming out the womb and they're getting iPhone 15s.
Yeah, my brother's 5 and he has a phone.
That's what I'm saying. I think these are society norms that are always changing around the world. While I understand in the United States, you know, a first world country, we have different issues, obviously, in third world countries. But I think there's going to be a point where they're going to have the same things. Like, you know, these kids are coming out, they're having phones. And we're like, man, these dang kids with their dang phones. But I think that kind of shows the culture of society and how they change over time and how they just become norms.
Alright, last question here. Can you give me an example of power and resistance in the world?
Yes. Power and resistance in the world. So, let's think of a powerhouse, the United States of America. Big timers. Number one nation is what we think.
I think China has speed.
I think so too. But us United States citizens all, that's a generalization. I'm not going to say for everyone.
Yeah.
People think that we're great in all this, but we can fight back on certain issues. I think people are starting to turn a little bit on the government over the last, 8 years, would say, maybe last 12 years. I don't know. Politics has been all over the place.
Yeah.
I think people are starting to almost see and open their eyes, look at other countries, and be like, maybe we're not a powerhouse like we think we are. Maybe we aren't the best. Looking at the straight facts, we aren't the best. We're definitely not the highest in education.
Yeah.
We're definitely not the highest in annual income. We're definitely not the highest in obesity rates. We're definitely not. We are probably. We are not as good as we think we are. And I think we're getting humbled. And I think the power that we have as the people is that we can come together and we can vote and protest on these issues. And while it hasn't always been successful, you can look at like the Civil Rights Movement. Super successful. Everyone came together. Everyone voted. They said, this is an issue we have. We're the little people. We're the oppressed. But it's okay because we can all come together and fight the big power.
Yeah.
And they won. And I think we should take a page out of their notebook and we can all come together as a younger population and we can take the issues that we want and we can fight against the big power of the United States. And we can make the changes that we want to see. We can whine on TikTok all day and make all the memes be like, why isn't this changing?
Yeah.
But we have to be the change.
So we're fighting against the resistance.
We are resisting against the top powers of the United States.
Okay.
We the people. Like the Constitution says, we the people.
I like that. Well, that's all the questions here. You have anything else to add?
I think leaving off on it, I really enjoyed the class. I think it really has helped me take a deeper thought in my brain. Looking at cities, I was able to analyze a lot of things I've seen firsthand and put actual words and context to it. And I think it's just overall given me a more positive outlook on other countries around the world. And I'm really glad I took the class. But hopefully you like my podcast. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.